Let's take a look at variables in the automation part of the Tocker platform. Variables are simply a way for the user to define a value that they want to use throughout their automation flow. A variable can live throughout a workflow, but it won't be stored persistently. The variable will come to an end once the workflow has completed. To fully understand variables, we need to compare them to action results. So let's have a quick recap of what an action result is. If I run this action, then we can see from the console that it returns something. In this instance, it returns a list of text because it's splitting this phrase, tocker.io, on the full stop. So it's returning our two items. And we can see this result in the console. We can also identify this result by clicking the action results option on the action itself. This will flip around the action card and we can see the result that it returns is a list marked by the square brackets icon, and we can see it's called result. And as we hover over it, we also get a preview of the value because we've just run it. We can identify that this is an action result because it's a green chip. An action result also comes directly from the back of an action when we are selecting it. An action result simply reflects the result of that action the last time it was run. The value of it cannot be updated unless that action is rerun. So this value we can guarantee will remain the same throughout the rest of the activity once it has been run for the last time. A variable, however, can be updated throughout an activity. And we'll come on to how you can do this. First of all, let's take a look at how we can create a variable as opposed to how an action result is produced. To create a variable, there are several ways. The first and most obvious is to use the set variable action. We can create a variable by opening the set variable action and giving it a name. So for example, we might have a variable called company and the value might be tocker.io. And this time it's of type string, which represents text in the platform. Let's save that and give it a run. We can see that the set variable also produces a result, and we can, if we flip it over, we can see these results because they are in green. But one additional thing that the set variable gives us will appear in this variables tab. So if we select that variables tab, you can see we now get a pink chip which is called company, and if we hover over it, it also shows us a preview of the value behind that pink chip. Pink chips represent variables. Another way that we can create a variable is by directly creating a variable from an action result. So the way we can do that is by going into an action, and every action at the bottom of its panel will have this variable group. If we expand that, we can now see the list of results that this action returns, in this case only the one, which is called result, and we can create a variable directly from this result by clicking plus. So this new variable might be called something like split company name, and we can do a set variable. So if we save that now and rerun it, we can go to the variables panel and we can see we've got this new variable called split company name. And as we hover over it, we can also see that it's showing us a preview of its value. So those are the two ways that you can create a variable. So what's the difference between using an action result and using a variable? Well, to use an action result, for example, if we want to remove the last part of this split name, so the IO part, then I can go to my list actions and find the remove from list option or action here. Now if I want to select the action result, I press the variable button on the list input, I find the action that my result originates from, and I click it, and then I can select the green action result chip. And I want to remove from the end, so it removes the IO part, leaving me just the company's name. So I can now run this, and we can see it returns us an updated list with just the one item in. The difference is though, if I now look at the preview result for this, you can see it's still Tocker IO. So it hasn't updated that original result, it's remained the same. All it's done is it's returned us a new list from that action result. Now if I want to use the variable, then I can do exactly the same. I use the remove from list action and I press the variable button here, except this time, rather than selecting it from the action, I in fact go to the variables tab and I select it from there. I can then select end again, save, and play that step. And you'll notice that this returns exactly the same thing. And if we go to the variables tab, you'll also notice that it hasn't changed our original split company name variable either. And that's because we've read in the variable value, but we haven't instructed anything to update the original variable either. So let's look at how we can do that. If we go back to our list group and select our remove from list action again, we want to select the variable, as we know that we can't change action results. If we want to update a value, we have to use a variable. So we select our pink chip here, and you'll notice when I use a variable here, I get this new option which says update variable. And what that indicates is it will overwrite the value of our pink variable here with the result of this action. So I can tick this option, save that, and now if I run this final remove from list that we've just placed down, you can see, oh, we need to change that, so it changes to end rather than start, so we're left with the right thing. So if we now rerun this step, now that I've corrected that, we can see that it returns Tocker as before and as expected, but this time if we hover over the variable here to show us a preview of the value, it's only got one item in, so the variable has been updated after we ran that action, which is just as expected. So that's the key difference between action results and variables. I can update a variable, but you can't update an action result. You can think of it as an action result is read-only, but a variable is read and write. The last thing to cover with regards to variables is how we can actually skip a lot of this creation that we've done to create variables and use the system to our advantage to create variables from action results. If we go to our remove from list action again and we select the action result this time, you'll notice we get this yellow triangle warning and it says action results are read-only. Click here to convert to a variable. So if I click there, it's now prompting me, it's basically creating a variable automatically for me directly from this action result, because it's realized I'm using an action result and actually what I would like to do is update it, which requires a variable. So we'll do this as final list set variable, and it's now converted that to a pink chip. It's now giving us the option to update the variable. And so if we run that step. It's performed it. And actually, also, if we now look at the original action which that action result came from, and go to the Variables tab, we can see it's automatically added this final list variable mapping for us. So that's how you can create a variable, read it, and also update it.